Okay, I think I'm ready.
Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. We're grateful that you can join us for another week.
We certainly are.
And we're very excited. We have Colin Hillstrom back with us today. He has been dedicated to human health and healing for over 30 years. He is a certified sound healer, life coach, and conflict coach. Colin has written several books on the subjects of self-healing, life coaching, and relationships. He's currently recording his second album with Alchemy Quartz Crystal Singing Bowl. So welcome back, Colin. We're really excited to have you back. We had such a good conversation last time about sound healing and sound bowls, and kind of ventured off into a little bit of music and, how it's kind of, there's a lot of older music like Mike Oldfield. We were talking about how a lot of his music really inspired sound and things like that as well. So we thought we'd continue on our conversation about sound and the benefits of it, and see where we go with our conversation today.
Thanks for having me back. I was so inspired by our last conversation that I thought, well, I really like to continue talking with you, because it's just such a wonderful way to generate awareness when we get into a conversation with people who are really turned on to life and are really curious about certain things and how to make things better. And so, so thanks again for the opportunity to be here and speak with you again.
Yes, absolutely.
It feels like it's been a long time, but I don't think it is actually. It was maybe 2 months ago, because in the meantime, I've actually completed the recording of that second album.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, the recording is complete. I just have not actually released it yet. I'm still in the process of listening to it and deciding actually what the best way is to actually make it available, but in a way that it actually kind of really makes sense. So often, like for me, the way to go into a studio, and it was the way like that with the first album too, is that I knew what I wanted to play, but I didn't really have an agenda or a plan for that. So I just like go in and just do the recordings. They're typically just one take, just like Bob Dylan apparently actually recorded. Very different than Michael Jackson. It was like apparently like a super finicky. And but yeah, just going in, setting up the bowls, playing, and then the real magic actually happens after the playing is done with the bowls. That's when the recording engineer really gets to do his or her work. And both these cases were like, men who are my sound engineers. And I've really learned to get a lot of appreciation for the work that sound engineers do. And I'm just currently listening to an audiobook by Geddy Lee, the bass player for Rush. And he talks about his experience in becoming a professional musician. And same thing, he says, like, it's just absolutely incredible, the work that recording engineers have to do after the musicians are done. And so that album is done, but it has not been released yet. I'm just listening to it, see what my personal experience is. That kind of informs me a little bit as to how to describe it and then how to release it.
Well, that'll be exciting when it comes out.
It should be soon.
What's that?
Yeah, well, and we might have talked about it in the last podcast. I'm not quite sure, so I don't want to repeat what we talked about last time. But part of the idea really is to find your note. Like everybody has a certain note, and that starts with your astrological sign, right? So there are 12 signs, there are 12 notes. Mm-hmm. So let's say if your star sign, zodiac sign is Aries, then it's the first note and in the octave, which is a note of C, that you might want to experiment with and see if that note, when you kind of hum it, plug it on a guitar, or play it on a keyboard, if that particular note brings about any particular feeling experience for you, and it may or may not be. But the other thing is, and this is something that the Sufis talked about, is that the soul has the same note throughout all of its incarnations. So once you find that note, it's almost like having found a portal or a wormhole into your soul energy. So that's really quite cool. That was one of the reasons why I actually wanted to record this. I like genuine shortcuts to enlightenment. I think it's, when a person's ready, a genuine shortcut is actually valid.
Yeah.
So I think
It's
sound
good.
can be used for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. So what sign would be for a Virgo? Or what note rather?
Virgo is an F.
An F,
It's a note of
okay.
F.
Okay.
Mhm.
It's good to know.
And
Now,
an F it's
go
pardon
ahead.
me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you could find if you have a keyboard, or just get yourself a free guitar tuner app for your phone, and on
Okay.
that you can easily find the note of F, and you just you activate that particular sound, and you can just hum to it and see how that feels. That's a totally genuine, bona fide, and free self-healing method, I would say.
Okay.
Sound, particularly the human voice, is probably the oldest form of self-healing, because everybody has a voice,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
So humming to a child, humming to an infant, right? That's sound healing. So we can do that to our own selves to bring ourselves into a higher state of balance and soothing ourselves. So it's a really nice little way to do that.
So if we were stressed, okay, let's say we were stressed, if we played our note, then that would create our stress to be
Mhm.
less and help us to be happier. Okay.
Correct.
Wonderful.
Yes, I say correct in the sense that there's a really good chance that that will happen. I mean, there's never a guarantee. Just like if you feel you're getting a cold and you take an extra high dose of vitamin C, that can really give you a greater chance of not falling sick, but it's not a guarantee. So the
Okay.
same is true for modality that we use. But I think that neuroscientists tell us that the human brain actually evolved with sound and music. And we see that in the more indigenous cultures. They still sing and hum as a tribal unit, and they sing and hum together when they're working, and it's just like
Right.
there's just something very special, unique about sound and music for the human brain. So we could then maybe move forward on the assumption that if there's still room for the human brain to evolve, that we could actually use sound and music. But I think the music has to change. You cannot expect a change when you keep doing the same thing. So we keep listening to the same pop tunes and folk music. That can have a benefit, but it may not actually necessarily create a real change in an evolutionary sense. So we talked about
Okay.
we touched on the music of Mike Oldfield. Mike Oldfield, for example, Tubular Bells. It's a completely different album than, let's say, the Beatles' White Album or Dark Side of the Moon. Right? It's a completely different kind of music, and I think it causes a different effect. For brain development, I would say I would rather listen to Tubular Bells than Dark Side of the Moon, even though they're both extraordinary albums.
Yeah.
But they have. And so choosing wisely, just like we would choose wisely, like how to nourish ourselves. If you like steak, you might want to have a steak for dinner, but not for breakfast. You might have Scottish oats for breakfast. It's like how to choose what nourishes you with wisdom. I think that's something we can all probably learn a little bit better about.
I agree. And I think that when we're trying to regulate our bodies and our systems and our minds, I think using the vibrational frequencies and the notes that way, I think actually regulate us more than if we're singing in the car or we're doing that kind of thing. I mean, all sound I think is good to a degree, but I think to regulate our bodies, I think getting that frequency of the vibration is good.
Yeah.
Very important
I found
too, I would
recently,
think.
pardon me?
I said very important too. If it soothes the body and soothes the mind, that's really important because we're all looking for something that's going to come together for that, right? To give us that peace and tranquility that we're looking for to settle our day. Would that be the end of our day? We could settle down and listen to that and just relax. And that would do everything we needed in order to bring us that quiet. Is that
Yes.
true?
Oh, the quietude,
Okay.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
But it comes to inner peace and more quietude, to that still point. Hmm. I find sometimes that it's really easy to reactivate a particular song. It's like popular music. I think we all have certain tunes that just suddenly start to play in our heads. And I think the same is true for like thoughts, values, like all the things that we've kind of become so used to that it become like part and parcel of what we are. These things get suddenly activated, and they kind of begin to take over, our thoughts and emotions, and influence our actions, and how to disrupt that. So I found recently, oh my God, it might have been over a decade ago that I had a conversation with someone on the phone about, I was just something relating to conscious and spirituality, and this person mentioned a mantra, Namyo Renge Kyo, and I think it means something like I bow to the Buddha nature, and I immediately heard a song in my head, or like a melody. I picked up the guitar and I just wrote a few chords to that, and I find that to this day, whenever I find that I suddenly play like the song Opla Di Opla Da suddenly starts to, I can't get out of my head, right? I use that Namyo Renge Kyo as a way to actually disrupt that automatic jukebox kind of playing in my head. And it really works. It works every single time. So I thought, wow, that's actually really interesting that you can use, that's probably not a new idea, but you can use a particular mantra that resonates with you to really disrupt this being a machine. These things are just suddenly activating us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think mantras are really good. And I think that they're so, like when you're doing them, and especially if you're doing them out loud, there is that vibration of the sound that is very healing and is very, quiets your mind a little bit and gets that constant chatter. Because I know that for me, if I'm doing that, then my mind can't be racing, thinking about, the grocery list and what I need to do tomorrow and all of those things. So I think that's a good way to, calm yourself, to be able to just go into a meditation if that's what you want, or just take that break that we sometimes need.
Absolutely.
I agree. So when you play the crystal bowl, okay, do you have, I know you're in the process of a move here and renovating. Do you have one of your bowls there? Like, is it an actual crystal bowl?
Yeah, I don't have any single bowl out right now, unfortunately. There's lots. I have lots of YouTube videos. So if anyone of your listeners wants to see what they look like,
And you showed us on the last one of the bowls, but
yes.
Okay.
And
yes, you did.
And the problem, I think, because you had tried last time to like let us hear the sound, but it's so hard on the podcasts and that kind of thing to get that through, I think, on YouTube. And I think the best way to listen to those sounds and things like that are with a really good pair of headphones, so that you're just blocking out everything else and just really letting it resonate into you.
Absolutely true. Yeah, like a good headset really makes a huge difference, because the sound waves can be so exquisite. But like just ordinary, the like listening to it over like your phone just doesn't do it justice.
Right.
It really doesn't. These bowls are quartz crystal singing bowls that are infused with precious and semi-precious metals and gems. So, for example, the manufacturer crushes and liquefies quartz, and they melt it, say, platinum, and then they blend the liquid platinum and the liquid quartz. They create a blend, and then they cast the bowl. And so, and that could, so instead of, or in addition to platinum, that could be amethyst or serpentine, or like a whole, like basically any gemstone or metal can be used to be incorporated into the actual fabric of the bowl. And so through the sound activation by quartz, you get access to the frequency of whatever else is like in that bowl. So platinum, for example, is known as precious metal that helps us to connect with the divine feminine consciousness. And that was actually the reason why I started building this set with boards that contain platinum. I would say I typically play sound bath with about 20 balls, and at least 1/3 of them contain platinum. I also love the sound and the feel of platinum, but it was initially, I would say, one of the main intentions was, and it still is, really, I would say the number one reason why I do this work is to help people connect with the divine feminine consciousness, if not only for a catalyst that allows us to become more receptive to divine consciousness. And I think that's really what divine feminine consciousness is all about. It's about the receptivity. Mm-hmm. So when we become receptive at high levels of frequency, that we must also become active, which then is more the male and masculine aspect of doing, creating, but it gets actually informed by the involutionary waves of the divine feminine consciousness. So anyway, that's how I see it, and it's just my personal perspective on this. But the idea that that we can access these divine frequencies through balls, that's just not my idea. That's just something that many sound healers before me have talked about, and it's probably an idea that goes all the way back to the ancient mystics.
So do you find that when you're collecting bowls, do you find that you're drawn to certain bowls? Like you said that you really enjoy platinum for its properties and that kind of thing. But do you find that when you go looking for them, that something it like kind of pops out to you and really attracts you to it?
Yeah, it has something to do with the sound. There's a certain sound that I really like. And there's a huge range in sound qualities with bowls. The way I assemble a set of bowls, it's number one based on sound healing principles, and that's just something that was discovered by Pythagoras, the father of medicine and sound healing, going back to the 6th century BC, and that's a very simple principle. Is known of the perfect fifth, which is like 2 notes that are 7 half notes apart, and they actually build the structure, the left and the right notes of any chord. A chord is like 3 notes, and the first and the third note together create a perfect fifth. And they actually creates those 2 notes induce balance. When we hear those, it's like the human neurology kind of feels and experiences balance. So my whole set is based on, so for each of the 12 notes, you have a perfect fifth partner. So with 20 balls, like I can play through quite a few different variations of these perfect fifths. So that's the underlying principle for me. The other one is that I like music and melody. So my set is built in a way that I can play a song. So quite often you might hear something in my sound bath that might remind you of Dark Side of the Moon. I like those kind of, and it can quite nicely create these etheric sounds that, say, Pink Floyd or Tangerine Dream were known for with bowls. So I really like that. And if you have a bowl that has a really exquisite sound, it will actually induce or elicit other beautiful sound waves from the other bowls in the set. So they really play on each other like an orchestra. And so the third element is really the audience. Like every single time when I play a sound bath, I don't know at the beginning, like, how a particular bowl will play, because it's always influenced by who's in the space. So who's in the space itself, other atmospheric influences, moon cycles. It's like typically play a sound bath at least on a full moon. Of course, I love to play them on a new moon as well. So those auspicious dates and times are, for me, like primary times to play a sound bath. December 31st is my favorite day of the year to play a sound bath, and people just love to come for a sound bath on New Year's Eve. So those are all factors that really influence what happens in a sound bath. When you have good bowls, I would say, I've very rarely experienced being in a sound bath that was played with, I'm just going to use the word inferior bowls, because just like with any instrument, you can have an inferior piano to like see a Steinway. That, I mean, it's just it has nothing to do with judgment or being arrogant about a particular type of bowl. It's just a fact that with certain instruments you have a better quality, a different experience.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all factors, yeah. But then if you take 5 or 6 different bowl players into the shop and they each play the same bowl, they would each have their own different experience with that particular bowl. And so it is also with people coming to the sound bath. We all hear the same sound waves being played, but we all have our own unique experience listening to the bowls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been my experience when I've gone to a sound bath, is like how they resonate with me. And I feel like it almost, for me, it's very, it's so calming, but I feel it like it resonates and it vibrates like right into my actual body when I'm listening to them. Like I can actually feel that, the vibration in my stomach or in my, like almost like your blood is vibrating with while you're listening to them. So I particularly do enjoy a really good sound bath because of that.
Oh, me too. Me too. It's just such an experience, and the vibrations do travel right through you, from all the different instruments and that you play. And it really can take you sailing out into other areas. Like it can really open you up in your mind to really like just relax and take where your mind wants to go. It's beautiful. It really is. And I guess there's no reason you can't sleep too, because it seems to really sedate you so much, right? That it's like, whoa, it's amazing. I love them. I love them. I think everybody should go.
I think, yeah, the most common feedback afterwards, when you speak with people a couple of days afterwards or the next sound bath, they will say they had some of the best sleep ever in their life the night after the sound bath. And it's true for me as well to this day. I mean, even though I sleep really well every night, after a sound bath, it's even a different level of sleep.
Yes.
I don't know why that is, or what that really means, but I would say that possibly that like the whole system gets reset to like a more like to a higher state of equilibrium, possibly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Makes sense.
yeah, and also the experience of what you shared a moment ago, like the experience of like really feeling the vibrational essence more like in your own body and your being. That is a feedback that's really quite common too. And I would say it quite more commonly comes from people who already have like a meditation practice, people who are used to going inside and witnessing. So I receive that comment after sound bath more frequently from people where it's obvious that they have a meditation practice versus those people who are really new to the essence of a vibrational lifestyle, perhaps, or vibrational practices. So I think that's one of the signs that a person is able to actually feel the vibrational nature of all that is.
Yeah. I would agree with that. And I mean, I think too, sometimes like depending on how it hits you and where you are in your life and what your state of mind is when you're entering into that, I would agree with that, because if you have a lot on your mind, a lot of times I've found like you can be very almost sad and almost releasing of the tears and releasing those things, because that vibration is resetting your body, and so you're allowing that space to be able to heal that for yourself.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, I quite enjoy them, and I'd love to learn one day how to play them. Was it hard to learn how to play them, or?
No, it's actually it's very simple. It's a very, very simple craft. I would say it's a very simple, yeah, it's not difficult at all. It has a lot to do with the relationship that one feels with the bowl. Once I saw the bowl that started the whole set for me. It took me over 2 weeks to actually get the courage to touch that bowl. I felt so in awe with it. But then it was easy. I also had a few people who around me that were quite experienced, so they showed me how to play. It's not difficult. I think the most important aspect is probably like how you feel about when you approach a bowl. I've taught quite a few workshops, and you can tell there are certain people who have a very, very natural ability to not only play a bowl, but to play several bowls in concert with each other. And not everybody does. So it's just like not everybody who can strum a guitar sounds like a great guitar player, even though they might enjoy it equally. So it's just when the time is right.
I want to ask a question here. Like when you do a sound bath, like you do it in groups, but do you ever take people individually and work on a person individually with a sound bath sort of thing? Like if they had a specific problem, would you try to work with them to, try to make them be better? Would you do that?
No, I never do. Would never do that. I would never take an approach of direct like healing intervention using sound. The way how I experienced sound healing with bowls before I started playing was that you come into a sound bath and you go there because you need and you must be there, and then you step into an allowing state and surrender and let the rest take over. It's just like connecting with the healing presence of all that is, and it'll work and coordinate everything. I think the moment we try to affect something, I think we really get the wrong part of the mind involved.
Okay.
And that's my perspective. And I think it's just be there, and that's always my recommendation in sound baths. Also, it's just like the fact that you're already there says something about your overarching intention. So you don't have to set any other intention; just be there and surrender, and breathe through it and enjoy if you can.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. I think it's amazing, and I think so. When you're playing, is some of it intuition as to what bowl to play with what bowl to put that melody together then?
It's entirely intuition, yes. So my set is set up just like a keyboard, piano keyboard, right? So if you're a pianist, you approach the keyboard and you can want to play a certain song, or you just improvise and let it come to you. And that's just how I play the bowls. They're there, and I know them quite well, and they're put together as a set for a particular reason. And the rest is just really improvisation. It's just a beautiful feeling just to approach a sound bath with a no mind kind of attitude and being like completely open, and just let the magic unfold. And that way it's always magical for me as well.
Oh, it is. You enjoy it too. Do you get something back then when you're doing it for other people? So the whole energy of the whole room just joins in and everybody enjoys it.
Yeah.
So you connect. Oh, cool. That's cool too.
Yeah.
Do you find when you travel, because just in talking to you off air, sounds like you travel quite a bit. Do you find that as you're traveling to some of these different places, do you find that they influence you, or they give you different things to help you with your sound baths, like experiences or?
I don't travel much for sound. It may sound like I have traveled a little bit. For example, I took Costa Rica once, and I would never ever do that again. I was lucky to get them back, simply because you cannot really check them in as luggage, so you have to take them as a carry-on. And just because they fit into the overhead bin doesn't necessarily mean that they'll let you take them on board because the case is too big. So I currently really I live in Bragg Creek, so outside of Calgary. So I really only play Bragg Creek, Calgary, and Canmore currently. Summertime, when traveling is easy, then I will get in the car and go to other places. But other than that, it's just locally. But it's not difficult. Like they stack. There's 20 balls. They stack into 5 cases. So they stack or nest just like Russian dolls. So that part is easy. It's just like taking them on an airplane, public transportation, that's when it becomes a bit of a touchy thing. Yeah.
I would think.
Playing in Costa Rica, for example, was kind of nice, but it was difficult because the air is more humid, and that actually affects the touch of the bowl.
Okay.
So actually, our environment here, like a drier climate, is just really nice because the bowls are just easy to touch with a mallet. So that makes a difference. But it is overall the nature of space, the quality of the space. So, for example, here in Bragg Creek, we have a wonderful yoga studio. It's octagonal shaped. It's got incredible acoustics, and just the work that's been done here in terms of spiritual work over the last 2 decades, I think, has been really quite outstanding. And just the energy of the place as well. You can feel that versus going into like a bunker downtown and you have sirens going around you.
Yeah.
You know, that affects
Bragg
everyone
Creek.
and everything.
It does. Bragg Creek is beautiful, and it's where you're located there near the mountains. That, oh my God, that in itself is a beautiful sound, rather the wind or anything else.
Yeah, it
So
sure
do you?
is. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you do a sound bath sometimes outside where you're in nature like that, like in your backyard or something like that,
Yes.
where people can actually enjoy it? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I have done this here in Bragg Creek, particularly in collaboration with Amarin Dawn, who was actually founder of the yoga studio here, and she's a nature guide.
Okay.
She and her husband actually take people out in nature for forest bathing and things like that. So we collaborated a few times, going to the forest or going down to the Elbow River, and
Oh,
we
cool.
playing sound baths there, and that's a wonderful experience. People really like it.
I bet it is. I bet it
Yeah.
would be. Just listening to ricocheting off of the mountains and themselves would be like beautiful.
Or a canyon, right? So like there are a couple of spots where the Elbow River flows through a canyon, and the sound just bounces back and forth from with the canyon walls. So that's really quite exquisite.
Wow.
Yeah.
Gonna have to put that on my bucket list of things to do.
Yeah.
I just like, for myself, I love nature. I find nature is just so grounding, and so it really is my place. So I think just to incorporate those two would be like heaven.
Oh, whatever. Whatever.
Yeah.
So enjoyable. Oh my.
Yeah.
There's a date. We'll have to go to Bright Creek one day and
You have to go to Bragg Creek, yes. And maybe we can do a podcast like here in Bragg Creek, like live outside. I mean, we could do that and maybe do a
that would be
demonstration. That would be
that
really
Yeah.
great.
That would
fun.
be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. Well, my son lives there. Barb's grandson lives in Bragg Creek as well. So it's a definite
Oh, really?
doable thing. Yeah.
Nice. That'd be really great.
Yeah, we would really enjoy that. And plus, yeah, it's just such an amazing experience. Like I hope when people are listening to this, they're so encouraged to go and participate in a sound bath, because there's no words really to describe it except for it's so beautiful.
Mhm.
And there are so many wonderful sound healers everywhere now. It doesn't actually matter where you live. You'll find a good quality sound bath, and such a broad variety of sound baths too. Everybody has their own unique style. And
Right.
yeah, I highly want to encourage your listeners just to approach it like a smorgasbord, and see what your experience is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if there was one message that you wanted to give to the followers about sound bath or about anything, what would that be?
I think people and we talked about this a moment ago, and I just want to reiterate that point. I think people who have a good, solid meditation practice get more benefits being in a sound bath. So if you listen to this and you feel like you'd like to experience this and you haven't really meditated much, that would be it's not that it's a prerequisite for going to a sound bath, but will definitely enhance your enjoyment of the sound bath if you have some meditation tools. Just be present, because when you're in a sound bath, you still have to deal with the chatting mind, your own chatting mind, right? And that chatting mind can really interfere with what could otherwise be a fantastic experience. So that would be something I would really encourage, a good meditation practice.
Yeah, I
Okay,
would agree with
perfect.
that.
Me too.
Well, it's been such an honor to have you back on the podcast. It's been wonderful. We appreciate you taking your time with us. Can you tell everybody where to find you?
Yeah, please go to my website, colinhillstrom.com. That's COLINHILLSTROM.com. And there you can see my schedule and books and CDs and or downloads. Nobody really buys CDs anymore.
Right.
Yeah, colinhillstrom.com. That's good. All right.
Okay.
You can find my downloads on Spotify, on iTunes, and all the streaming platforms, and have a listen. And just like we said maybe before, like when you listen to say a recording like that on iTunes or Spotify, highly encourage you to use a really good quality headset, because that will definitely affect the experience.
Beautiful.
So thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It's been a delight speaking with you again.
It's been fun. It's been
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, we've loved it, and hopefully we can make the collaboration work to come and do a live one with you and experience
That'd be
that
great.
Let's do
outside.
that.
That'd be wonderful.
That would
Let's
be
do that.
All
yeah,
right.
it'd be fun too. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And everybody else,
You're welcome.
stay tuned for next week.